Hi everyone, welcome. Today we are going to discuss how to manage commercial and competitive aspects of early to late stage transition in biotech companies. My name is Martyna Wroblewska, I am from BaseLaunch, and today I am joined by an expert, Peter Mozerov, Senior Manager Life Science Strategy at KPMG. So Peter, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited for this opportunity to talk to you. Obviously, you work with a lot of biotech companies, so your advice will be very relevant to anyone, but especially those that are just at the beginning of their journey. But maybe we can start by just asking you to please tell us a few things about yourself.
Thank you. Pleasure being here. I am a molecular biologist by training with PhD in developmental biology, so biotech is my passion. I have a career between investment funds investing in biotech and at consultancies advising biotech and pharma organizations on their development and commercial performance.
Right, and what is your role at KPMG precisely?
I am combining these two of my passions by primarily focusing on emerging biotech, preparing to launch their first therapeutic and ensuring that this launch is a success.
And can you tell us maybe a little bit more about KPMG?
We're indeed very large. We are one of the big fours. We are a global advisory and an accounting firm. We are advising companies on the whole range of business questions, and pharmaceuticals, life sciences, biotech is our firm's special focus, both from business but also from the societal impact perspective.
So how do you specifically collaborate with life science companies? What are the early stage ones are turning to you with, and what are the more mature ones?
Absolutely. These are two different types of companies. The questions are very different and the abilities of companies are also very different at the early stage and at the later stage. Early on, the company is largely virtual and they need help largely in very specific areas, be it IP filing or some tax advice or incorporation. Sometimes the business strategy, maybe understanding a little bit the market, but usually the founders have a specific idea about why they have started this project. With larger companies, of course, things are much more complicated. Companies have many more functions, many more questions. They are much more complex, and there we are able to support them in the whole breadth of services, be it from understanding the market, designing the go-to-market strategy, designing enterprise strategy, going into all the minutiae of finance, IT, supply chain, quality operations, down to post-merger integrations after the acquisition has happened.
So BaseLaunch works with scientists and entrepreneurs and helps them to build their own biotech companies from scratch. And KPMG is one of our domain partners to support us with that. So maybe we can focus on early stage companies for the moment. So what are the most important aspects that you advise them on? In other words, what are the most important things that they should really get right from the very beginning?
Right. As with all important things, you need to plan with the end goal in mind. And this means that in the beginning you need to lay down the structure that will enable the growth in the future for you. So, which means that you need to design a structure that would be attractive for your investors, that will facilitate their exit later on. But this structure also needs to be flexible enough also to facilitate later an acquisition by a pharma company or build up of your own independent large organization as well. And this needs to be set up right from the incorporation together with your IP.
So what, in your experience, are the most important success factors?
As we have written together with BaseLaunch a couple of years ago, a publication, it is data, strategy, and the team. And I would dare say that strategy is probably the most important one, not only because thinking through it makes your business case clearer and thus facilitates discussion with investors, but also the process of thinking what may happen in the future, thinking through the scenarios and thinking through some things that may go sideways, makes you design ways around that, and it just creates the efficiency in organization and also effectiveness through smarter design of experiments, smarter data structure, smarter design of clinical trials.
Right, thank you. So we will of course make sure to link the article below, but Do you also think that the speed actually plays a role?
We have all seen in the recent years especially how fast followers appear once a proof of concept has been demonstrated by the leading company, be it a novel target or a new modality. So the ability to plan critical experiments is very important. Of course, there are many surprises in the biology. It is notoriously complex, but then with all these things that you cannot control, investing time and discipline into the things that you are able to control is very much worth it.
So when the young companies are growing, how can they transform into a commercial organization?
Companies need to overcome a few phase transitions, and they are often happening stepwise, requiring really rethinking of the structure of the company. So in the beginning, when the company is incorporating, and these are probably most companies that you're dealing with, the company can be very virtual. You need the scientific founder to drive the development and the discovery efforts. You need the CEO to drive fundraising, and you possibly need a lawyer to ensure that incorporation and IP filings are done right. But then when company is getting into clinic, then you need to ensure there is the clinical material supply, you need to communicate with the CROs, you need to communicate with the principal investigators, you need to already to have some start of the discussions with the regulators, and you need to start building the company that requires some operational footprint. In the late stage development, when the company is approaching commercialization, things become much more complex. You need to scale up manufacturing, you need to build up your quality organization, you need to ensure your supply chain is working, you need to communicate with plenty of clinical centers, and your phase 3 trials are becoming very large. You need to design the regulatory dossier, and this all needs to happen in a coordinated manner. So this is a large organization, and this large organization requires also built out support functions. So finance, HR, IT come on top of that, and this is a large change to companies. Sometimes they don't expect it.
Right, indeed. Two very different setups, very difficult transition. So what do you see the companies are struggling the most with?
I think there are three things. One is underestimating of how long things take. Hiring is one example. It often takes much longer to hire best people for a job. Then the communication with regulators, applying for licenses, going through inspections, it often takes much longer than what you expect. Secondly, the scale up. As the company is growing, there is a large risk of building silos that stop communicating, but you need to ensure that the company is continuing on the same course and that everyone is working towards the same goal and the same timeline. Thus, communication is really important, and communication is also important because the functions are interdependent, so that if we would think that commercial is closest to the market, closest to the understanding of what physicians need and what patients require, and they need to feed this back into clinical development, they need to feed it back into medical, they need to be closely aligned. They also are supplying the forecasts for the manufacturing organization, not to mention corporate, and these all needs to be aligned with regulatory so that your launch is happening in a coordinated manner and there are no delays and that everything is happening on time. And thirdly, this is market understanding. Often early stage companies focus only on one market, and if it is a large enough market, then basically the first launch is fine. But clinical realities, they differ wildly between countries. Sometimes a medicine in one country is sold through a pharmacy, in a different country it has to be prescribed by a hospital physician, and it really needs to be accounted for in your commercial activities, but also in your clinical planning activities. The standards of care, even at this very moment, differ wildly between the different countries, and sometimes you need to be aware of it, even to recruit patients for your clinical trials, not to mention what is happening during the commercial launch. It is a delicate balance at an early stage, how to get the main things right without going in too deep into detail and spending too much time on the minutiae that might not be necessary for planning.
So you mentioned that one has to start with the end goal in mind, and obviously the field is developing very rapidly. I guess there will be many challenges to come. So which challenges do you actually foresee in the biotech sector in the future, and how can companies overcome them to stay relevant?
We can only be certain that the world will change in 10 years. Some change will happen gradually, some change will probably happen stepwise. I think that the critical part is, on the one hand, that we can be certain that pricing pressure is going to continue. And pricing and reimbursement being critical for our industry, it does require an investment into understanding what payers want, understanding what endpoints are relevant for payers, and with a little bit of work ahead, I think most of the things are tackleable, even though the pressure will remain. But then some new technologies will be inevitably disruptive, and we have seen examples of such in the recent past, and these changes sometimes require a rethink of the overall business model of a company. mRNA products were maybe one example of such, and the looming era of cell and gene therapies is definitely another one. The questions are suddenly completely different. So with cell therapies, suddenly the manufacturing costs and the speed of the process is absolutely paramount. It is vital for the company's success. And it did require a lot of very smart science, a lot of optimization, and even rethink of how companies communicating with payers and hospitals. So these changes are definitely going to happen. So in conclusion, I guess there needs to be a combination of insight, anticipating some of the challenges and planning your company ahead, and the flexibility to be ready to rethink some fundamentals that you thought were given.
All right, thank you. So if you could leave us with one final piece of advice, what would it be?
Do not hesitate to ask for help. Some challenges may seem unsurmountable in the beginning, but there may be a very easy solution. And we are looking for partnerships very early on. So even if you're an early stage company, please do not hesitate to contact us.
So if any of our viewers would like to get in touch, what should they do?
Give us a call or drop us a note. We'd be very happy to speak.
Thank you so much, Peter, for your time. I think it was really amazing, and I am really happy we had the chance to exchange.
Thank you so much, Martyna.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. If you have a biotech project that you think would benefit from BaseLaunch support, please get in touch.